The answer is not in genetics, not in luck, and not in external circumstances. The answer is in you, in the habits you develop as a parent every day. Over my years of experience, and after working with thousands of families, I have discovered 7 specific habits that make the difference between raising vulnerable children and raising mentally strong children. Hi, I'm Brené Brown, and today I want to share something that can completely transform your children's lives. Have you ever wondered why some children seem to have extraordinary mental strength while others crumble at the first difficulty? Why some kids face challenges with courage while others run from the first obstacle? I'm going to warn you, what I'm about to share will challenge many parenting beliefs. You will discover that some things you think are protecting your children are actually weakening them. And you will learn that forging mental strength in a child has nothing to do with being hard or cold, quite the opposite. If you stay with me until the end of this video, you will not only learn these 7 transformative habits, but I will also give you specific tools to implement them starting tomorrow. Because, as I always say, knowledge without action is useless, and action without knowledge can be dangerous. Habit 1. Validate, don't rescue. The first habit that makes the difference between a parent who raises strong kids and one who doesn't is something that seems contradictory but has perfect neurobiological logic. Validate your children's emotions without overprotecting them from life's natural consequences. Let me explain what is happening in your child's brain when they feel intense emotions. When a child experiences sadness, frustration, fear, or anger, the limbic system, the primitive part of the brain that manages emotions, activates intensely. In that moment, the amygdala is sending alarm signals throughout the nervous system. As parents, we have 2 options. The first, which is the most natural and instinctive, is to run to rescue our child from that uncomfortable emotion. It's okay, my love. Don't be sad. Come here, I'll fix this. There's no reason to be angry. This response, although born of the purest love, sends a dangerous message to the child's brain. Difficult emotions are bad. You can't handle them on your own, and there will always be someone to rescue you. The second option, which characterizes parents who raise mentally strong children, is to validate the emotion while allowing the child to process it. I see you're really angry because your sister took your toy. I understand you feel sad because your friend didn't want to play with you. It's normal to feel fear in a new situation. What difference does this make neurologically? When we validate without rescuing, we help strengthen the child's prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for emotional regulation and decision-making. It's like exercising that mental muscle. A practical example, your 8-year-old comes home crying because a classmate said something hurtful. The natural impulse is to say, ignore him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Or worse, tomorrow I'm going to talk to his mother. A parent raising a mentally strong child would say, I can see those words really hurt you. It's normal to feel that way when someone says something mean. Tell me, how do you think you could handle this if it happened again? The difference is enormous. In the first case, you teach that emotions are enemies to be avoided and that someone external will always solve their problems. In the second, you teach that emotions are valuable information and that they have internal resources to manage them. But be careful. Validating does not mean allowing inappropriate behavior. If your child is angry and decides to hit a sibling, you validate the emotion and set clear limits on behavior. I understand you're angry. That emotion is valid, but hitting is not allowed. Let's find a better way to express your anger. Neuroscience tells us something fascinating. When a child learns to name and validate emotions, amygdala activation decreases and connections with the prefrontal cortex strengthen. In other words, you are literally building a more resilient brain. Before we continue with the second habit, if this content is valuable for your family, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for joining me on this journey toward more conscious parenting and stronger kids. See you in the next video as we continue exploring practical tools for our family's well-being. Every like tells me this message is reaching parents who truly want to raise stronger children, and your subscription allows me to keep researching and sharing tools that can transform our children's lives. Also, when you subscribe and activate the bell, you make sure you don't miss strategies that can help you on this beautiful but challenging parenting path. Habit 2. Praise the process. The second habit is one of the most powerful and one of the hardest to implement in our results-obsessed culture. Parents who raise mentally strong children teach them to value the process, effort, and learning over the final result. Let me tell you something that deeply impacted me in my practice. A mother came with her 12-year-old daughter. The girl was brilliant academically and had always gotten excellent grades, but now refused to go to school. The reason? For the first time in her life, she had failed a math exam and her world had collapsed. During our conversation, I discovered that this mother, with the best intentions, had built her daughter's self-esteem entirely on results. "You're so smart. I'm so proud of your grades. You're the best in your class." When the result didn't come, the girl felt she had lost all her value as a person. What's happening neurologically when we praise only results? We activate the brain's reward system in a very specific way. The child learns that their worth depends on external reinforcement. Their brain literally becomes addicted to external validation and develops what Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset. In contrast, when we praise effort, perseverance, strategy, and the ability to learn from mistakes, we strengthen neural connections associated with resilience and a growth mindset. Concrete examples for making this shift. Instead of, "You're very smart" when your child gets a good grade, try, "I see you studied hard, and it paid off." Instead of, "You're the best player on the team," try, "I love seeing how your technique has improved." With so much practice, here's the hardest part. We must also change our language when things don't go well. When your child fails a test, instead of consoling with, "It's okay, you're very smart," try, "Let's analyze what study strategies we can improve for next time." One of the most powerful moments you can create is helping your child find the learning in every failure. When my youngest lost a swimming competition he'd set his heart on, instead of empty consolations, we sat that night to analyze what he had learned. He realized he got very nervous before competitions and that it affected his performance. Together, we developed breathing and visualization strategies. 6 months later, not only did he improve in swimming, he learned anxiety management tools he'll use for life. Children's neuroplasticity is extraordinary. Every time we frame a difficulty as a learning opportunity rather than a failure, we are literally rewiring the brain for resilience. This does not mean we cannot celebrate successes. Of course, we can be proud when our kids reach their goals. The key is how we do it. Celebrate the path traveled, the effort invested, the skills developed, not just the trophy. Habit 3. Embrace productive frustration. The third habit distinguishing parents who raise mentally strong children is perhaps the most counterintuitive. Allow your children to experience frustration and teach them specific tools to manage it. In our culture, frustration has become childhood's enemy number one. Parents rush to remove any obstacle that might cause discomfort. If the puzzle is hard, we solve it. If the video game is tough, we pass the level. If homework is difficult, we do it for them. But here's the problem. Frustration isn't the enemy. It's the personal trainer of mental strength. Every time we deprive children of the chance to experience and overcome frustration, we rob them of the opportunity to develop one of the most important mental muscles: tolerance for discomfort. What happens in the brain when we experience frustration? Facing an obstacle we can't solve immediately activates a complex neural network that includes the prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate gyrus, and several limbic regions. This activation, though uncomfortable, is absolutely necessary for developing perseverance and creativity. Neuroimaging studies show something fascinating. Children who learn to tolerate frustration develop a more robust, better connected, and more efficient prefrontal cortex. It's as if each well-managed frustration is a training session for the brain. But allowing frustration doesn't mean abandoning our children to their fate. Parents who raise mentally strong children act as emotional coaches, not problem solvers. A mother told me about her 7-year-old son trying to build a very tall block tower. Again and again it fell, and he grew more frustrated. Her instinct was to help or suggest something simpler, but she remembered our conversation and tried a different approach. She sat nearby and said, "I see the tower keeps falling, and that's frustrating." Frustration is that uncomfortable feeling that shows up when something doesn't turn out like we want, right? He nodded. "You know what? Frustration is like a very strict coach. It shows up to teach us something. What do you think it's trying to teach you now? He thought for a minute and said, maybe that I need a wider base. She validated his insight. What a smart observation. Want to try that strategy? What happened next was magical. He built the tallest tower he'd ever made and learned something far more valuable. That frustration carries useful information and that he has internal resources to process it and act accordingly. Teaching frustration management requires tools. The pause breath technique. When you see frustration rising, teach your child to stop, take 3 deep breaths, and ask, what is this situation trying to teach me? Reframing. Instead of seeing frustration as an enemy, see it as valuable data. My frustration tells me this problem matters to me and that I need new strategies. Differentiate productive versus destructive frustration. It's productive when it motivates new solutions. Sustained effort or appropriate help-seeking. Destructive when it leads to giving up, emotional explosions, or blaming others. Create moments of controlled frustration. Offer challenges that are hard but within reach with effort and persistence. A slightly tougher puzzle, a multi-step recipe, or a challenging educational game. Be present as an emotional coach, not to solve the problem, but to help process emotions and develop coping strategies. Habit 4. Scaffolded autonomy. Foster progressive autonomy without emotional abandonment. Excessive dependence is the silent enemy of mental strength. I'm seeing more adolescents and young adults with paralyzing anxiety over basic life decisions. Why? For years, parents, out of love, made all the decisions for them. If a child never gets the chance to choose, make mistakes, and learn, their brain won't develop the neural networks needed for autonomous decision-making. Like an unused muscle, it atrophies. Neuroscience shows the prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, planning, and executive control, strengthens precisely when we use it to solve problems and make age-appropriate decisions. The art is that autonomy must be progressive and developmentally appropriate. A 3-year-old can choose between 2 breakfast options but cannot decide whether to go to school. A 15-year-old can manage a study schedule but may still need guidance for certain social choices. A practical example that transformed a family. They had a brilliant 10-year-old who couldn't organize himself. Mornings were chaos. Mom had to remind him of everything, from brushing teeth to packing his backpack. We implemented scaffolded autonomy. We created a system where the child was responsible for getting ready for school, with initial support gradually withdrawn. Week 1. Mom helped create a visual checklist of morning tasks. Week 2. He followed the list and she reminded him to check it. Week 3. He was fully responsible. She only intervened if he asked for help. In a month, not only was he autonomous in his morning routine, he developed a sense of competence and pride that spread to other areas. Key. Identify decisions and responsibilities appropriate for each age and temperament. An introverted child may need more time for social autonomy. A more impulsive child may need more structure for decision-making. Don't confuse autonomy with abandonment. Fostering autonomy means being available as a consultant and emotional support while they practice being protagonists of their own lives. For example, if your teen has a conflict with a friend, instead of calling the friend's parents or dictating the solution, say, I see this is worrying you. What options do you think you have? I'm here to listen and help you think through consequences. But the decision is yours. Use low-risk decisions constantly. What to wear, how to organize their room, which extracurricular to choose, how to spend allowance. Each decision strengthens the autonomy muscle. And when they make mistakes, as they will, don't rush to rescue them. Help them process what they learned. The goal isn't kids who never err, but kids who learn from errors and trust their ability to decide and face consequences. Habit 5. Loving limits with consistency. Set clear, consistent limits while maintaining a strong emotional connection. Parents who raise mentally strong kids understand that limits aren't walls that separate, but structures that provide safety and freedom to grow. I often see 2 equally harmful extremes. Parents who confuse love with permissiveness and avoid limits for fear their children won't love them. And parents who set limits through fear, threats, or emotional coldness. Neuroscience teaches something fascinating. Children's brains literally need structure to develop healthily. In an environment with clear, consistent limits, their nervous system feels safe, allowing the prefrontal cortex to develop properly. The key is that effective limits aren't imposed through blind authority, but established with love and explained with age-appropriate logic. A mother arrived exhausted. Her 8-year-old daughter was running the house, deciding dinner, bedtime, and TV shows. The mother said, "I don't want to be like my father, who was very authoritarian. I want my daughter to feel free and loved." I explained a perspective shift. Children don't interpret the absence of limits as love, they interpret it as lack of care. Without limits, your child receives the message that you don't care enough to protect and guide her. We implemented the FIRM framework. FIRM, the limit is stated calmly and confidently. Fair, appropriate for age and situation. You can't ask a 4-year-old to sit still for 2 hours, but you can require not hitting. Immediate. Consequences occur as close in time as possible to the behavior. Children need this temporal link to wire action to consequence. Related, consequences are logically connected to the behavior. If toys aren't picked up, the logical consequence is that the toys aren't available for a time. Not losing dessert. Maintainable. Don't set limits you can't consistently uphold or that punish the whole family more than the child. Communication matters most. Use connected limits. Instead of, because I said. So, try, I'm setting this limit because I love you and I want you to learn to take care of yourself and others. Example, your 10-year-old wants to go to bed an hour later on weekdays. Instead of a flat no or caving to avoid conflict, say, I understand you want to stay up later, and I see you're growing up. The 9:30 limit exists because your brain needs rest to function well tomorrow. How about staying up later on Fridays? This validates autonomy, explains the logic, and offers an alternative that respects both needs and family rules. Consistency is crucial. Kids need to know what to expect. If today's limit changes tomorrow based on your mood, you create anxiety, not safety. Consistency does not mean rigidity. There is room for flexibility. When your child shows maturity, when exceptions arise, or when a limit needs adjusting as they grow. Involve children in creating some family rules. When they participate, they're more likely to respect them because they feel heard and included. Habit 6, coach problem solving. Teach specific problem-solving skills instead of solving problems for them. In adulthood, the ability to face and resolve challenges autonomously is one of the strongest predictors of mental well-being and success. I often see brilliant young adults with severe anxiety, not because they lack intelligence or external resources, but because they never developed confidence in their own capacity to solve problems. Their parents solved so many issues for them that they reached adulthood without this fundamental mental muscle. The brain strengthens through practice. Every time a child faces a problem, generates options, makes a decision, and experiences consequences, they are literally building and strengthening neural networks for critical thinking and conflict resolution. Parents who raise mentally strong kids act as problem-solving coaches, not solvers. A concrete example. A mother was worried about her 11-year-old son's recurrent issues with a classmate who bothered him at recess. Her first reaction had been to talk to the teacher and the other boys' parents, but after our conversation, she tried a different approach. She sat with her son and said, I see this situation with your classmate is really affecting you. It looks like a problem that needs a solution. What options do you think you have? He initially replied, I don't know, you tell me what to do. She persisted, I trust you can think of some options. Take your time. He proposed 3. Ignore him, talk to the teacher himself, or try talking directly to the classmate. She didn't label options as good or bad. She helped him consider consequences. If you ignore him, what might happen? If you talk to the teacher, how might she react? If you talk directly to him, what could you say? He decided to first talk assertively to the classmate, and, if that didn't work, go to the teacher. The conflict was resolved, and he gained confidence in his ability to handle tough situations. Teach a simple method. Define the problem clearly. Kids get overwhelmed when they see chaos instead of a specific, addressable issue. Brainstorm options, including unrealistic ones at first, to expand creative thinking. Consider consequences. What might go well, what might go wrong, what resources each option needs. Decide and act, resisting the urge to steer the choice too much. Review after. What worked? What was learned? What to do differently next time? Resist jumping to the solution when you see your child struggling. Your protective instinct will scream to spare them pain by fixing things quickly. Remember, each problem you solve for them is a missed opportunity to build mental strength. This is not abandonment. It's shifting from solver to facilitator. Ask powerful questions. What options do you have? What do you think would happen if? How would you feel choosing that option? What would you need to make that work? Also teach that not all problems have perfect solutions. Sometimes every option has downsides, and that's okay. The skill is choosing the best available option and adapting based on results. Habit 7. Model regulation and growth. Model the emotional regulation and growth mindset you want your children to develop. Kids learn far more from what they see than from what they hear, and this has a solid neurobiological basis. Mirror neurons show that children's brains are literally designed to imitate and internalize the emotional and behavioral patterns they observe in primary caregivers. This means you can give all the speeches in the world about handling frustration. But if your child sees you explode every time you drop something or make a mistake, their brain will register that as the normal reaction to difficulties. In my experience, the most resilient families aren't those where parents never make mistakes or never get stressed, but those where parents model how to manage mistakes and stress in healthy ways. A personal example. A few years ago, I was preparing a very important presentation and my computer froze, losing hours of work. My kids were in the next room and heard my initial reaction, which was not a model of emotional regulation. After a few minutes, I realized I had a valuable opportunity. I went to them and said, "Did you hear that I got really upset?" I lost an important piece of work, and my first reaction was intense frustration. But now I'm going to stop, take 3 deep breaths, and think about my options to solve this. I did it in front of them. I breathed deliberately and verbalized my options. I can get more upset and fix nothing. I can try to recover part of the file. Or I can start again with what I've learned. I chose the third and explained why. Months later, when my youngest got frustrated after a drawing disappeared from his tablet, without me saying anything, he stopped, took 3 breaths, and said, "I'm going to think about my options." That's the power of modeling. Kids don't need perfect parents. They need parents who teach them how to be resilient, imperfect humans. Modeling regulation requires awareness and practice. We often operate on autopilot, especially when stressed or tired. Specific strategies. Conscious pause. When a strong emotion is about to overflow, especially in front of your kids, stop and say out loud, "I need a moment to calm down." This buys you time to regulate and normalizes healthy emotional pauses. Verbalize your inner process. Kids can't see your mind. Make it visible. "I'm feeling a lot of frustration right now because I have many things to do and little time. I'm worried about tomorrow's meeting, but I know worrying won't change anything, so I'm going to focus on preparing." Show how you learn from mistakes. When you mess up, especially if it affects your child, model responsibility and learning. "I made a mistake reacting that way when you spilled the juice. I let stress get the best of me, and that's not okay. I'm sorry, and I'll try to respond better next time." Model a growth mindset. How do you react when you don't know something? Do you say, "I'm just not good at math," or "I haven't mastered these problems yet"? How do you talk about challenges? As threats or as growth opportunities? How do you relate to failure? Avoid it at all costs or see it as valuable information? Model asking for help. "I don't know how to solve this. I'm going to look it up." Or, "I think I need help. Who could I ask?" Model self-compassion. When things go wrong, do you harshly criticize yourself or treat yourself with kindness and balance? Children who see parents practice self-compassion and treat errors as learning opportunities develop a far healthier, more resilient inner voice. Kids will mirror what we consistently model. If we model calm, curiosity, effort, and compassion, they will internalize calm, curiosity, effort, and compassion. If we model reactivity, avoidance, perfectionism, and harsh self-criticism, they will absorb those patterns too. Your daily behavior is the most powerful parenting lesson you will ever teach.